Hello and welcome back to What's Bubbling at ZIM. I am Dr. Abstract, and in this bubbling we're going to continue to take a look at what's new in ZIM 018. We're almost there. We've been doing a bunch of these, so let's go to the ZIM site now at zimjs.com. And you can get there by hitting this banner, but that banner may change in the future, so you can always get there up here. And note those are all what's new in the different versions. We're in ZIM 018. We've done bubblings on all this stuff so far. And we're on this one, woohoo! Although we do want to tell you about all of this as well, which we may do in a single bubbling maybe. I'm not sure. It's almost like that might be an explorer. Okay, anyway, so this is our last new feature. Really, this is another library called ML5. And we're just using that in ZIM. It's nothing specific to ZIM, but this one is. So here we're using that ML5, and we did a bubbling on that. We're using ML5, but we've added extra ZIM code in ZIM Cam to be able to handle pinch and feed that right into ZIM in general. Anyway, we're on this last one in the corner, and so I'm going to press that. Oh, doesn't that look exciting? So use arrows, or WASD. So I'm using my arrow, and I can move this guy around. Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay, and note that I am now arrowing up, and I can't go up. I'm arrowing to the right, and I can't go to the right. So this is done with the motion controller, and in this case with the keys of the motion controller, but it could also use the GameStick or GameButtons of the motion controller, or I think there's another one. Oh, the DPad. The DPad as well. So let's go in and take a look at how this code is done. Here we are. We're calling it the tileObj parameter, so it's an extra parameter of the motion controller. We're using ZIM 018. Global style. We mentioned that we would be talking about global style. We don't need to press on anything. Actually, we do need to press on some things. What we have to press on is up here. That's it. None of the other stuff is interactive with the mouse. So if we want to turn it all off, we can now set a global style. Mouse false. We could do it with style as well, but then if we did it with style, if we use style again, you see how we're using style again here, we would have to remember to keep mouse around. So if we use style up above and now we make a new style, we would have to put the mouse back in here, or we could do remember, so you can remember the style, and once we're finished it, we can go back to the old style. But what we've done is demonstrated a use of global style there. Set the mouse to false. That's new as well. That will put a no mouse on everything that is made. No mouse will be placed. And then we're clearing the global style here because afterwards for this we want to use it. As a matter of fact, let's see, because it doesn't matter in here if that has mouse or no mouse. So, oh, maybe, yeah, that's what it was. I was testing to see if it worked on mobile. We're using a D-pad right here, and the D-pad needed a mouse. So on mobile, right, on mobile, it'll be needed, even though there's no mouse on mobile. That's really touch as well. Touch is, so we've turned that off because the D-pad needs the mouse. Okay, got it. So we can turn off global style just like we turn off style, and we can turn it back on again later if you want to, but it just gives you sort of one more level of style that you would tend to use for things that you're not turning off and on a lot. All right, let's see how we did our tile object. Here it is. So we made a tile object right here that we're going to pass in to a motion controller. Tile object is the tile object that we made. By the way, in EASYstar you can get rid of that if you wanted, but it just looks so inconsistent that usually we keep it there anyway. And then down below there's another controller. This one is using keydown. So this is the one that we're activating currently on the desktop. But if we were on mobile, then we've made a DPad, passed in the DPad as the type and a tile object. The D-pads are little triangles, or a circle with little triangles in it. You press on the left or the right or up or down. It's our sort of version of keys on mobile. Okay, so going back up, what is this tile object? We can choose to animate it or not. So if we said, well, let's see what it looks like when it's animating. So as I use the key, you see how it moves from one to the left, or to the next. That's animation. There's a speed as well that's available for us, or a time. So we can, I don't know, it didn't look like I put it there, but if you look up in the docs, time is also something, I think it's time. And we can say false here. So open this in a default browser. Now it just pops right on over there. Okay, rather than animating over there. We've said how many columns there are and how many rows. So 10 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. Oh, 4 rows. Well, how about that? What do you think about that? It looks like we've got the wrong number of rows, and somehow it all still works. How does that happen? 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't explain it. It's a miracle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's definitely 6. So it looks like maybe the moves are overriding the rows, and we don't even need that. All right, well, we won't confuse people. We'll keep the rows as 6. Let's see what happens if we take out the calls in the rows here, because we've specified the moves. I think if we look at the docs, the moves are going to override the roles, if I remember correctly. So in the docs, we go to MotionController. So you look up the main class. So the docs only search, this search right here only searches this stuff. If you do a Control F search, you can search anything, but then it's anything that's open. So anyway, usually we know we're working with what we're working with. So we're going to the MotionController. And now that we've opened that, we could do a Control F to search more, but we don't usually have to because we know that these are the parameters here. And the parameters we're looking for is at the end, tile object right there. And under moves, to set an array of rows with an array of columns. For allowed moves, use 1. For not allowed moves, use 0. Note, this will override the calls in the rows value. So we don't even really need calls and rows in there. I could put a little message here. Overridden. Maybe that's what we were testing. Is that how you spell overridden? I suppose so. We were probably testing to make sure that this overrode the number of columns. If we didn't do that, let's have a look. So we don't have these overridden by moves. Put that in there for everybody. So now we're going 10 by 6, which should work. Okay, they're all available there. And sure enough, I can go anywhere. Okay, 10 by 6. I suspect that we're using the moves length to actually tile here. You see tile object calls, tile object rows. So I was going to show you what it would look like if we just had 4, but that won't work as I expected. Like if we had 4 and the tiles look like this, then we would only be able to move on the top 4 here. But the tiles won't look like that because we're actually making the tiles based on how many we have. So let's go back here and we can keep that at 6 and we can comment this out and we can bring this back and continue to talk about what's here. So that's the width of each tile and the height of each tile. there's the spacing between the tiles. Here's where we want to start. So you can adjust that. We had adjusted that at some point to not start up in the top left corner, but maybe I'm misremembering. Where are we starting? Yeah, we're not. Right, 0, 0. We're starting at 1, 1. Okay, so sure enough, that is adjusted because 0, 0 would be our starting point. That would have been our starting point. But we're moving in a little bit, and now here's our move. So basically, you put a 1 where there's a tile, or where you want to be able to go, and you put a 0 where you don't want to go. You don't have to put any zeros. If you don't put any zeros, there's no point really doing the moves, I don't think. You just put the rows and columns. And as soon as you do the moves, then you don't need to put the rows and columns. Leave that and upload it to the server. And we're back to how we had it before, where we can't move there. I can't move to the right or down there. And now I'm using WASD, so I can do that too. There's probably an option about that in the tile object as well. Should we look at the docs on that? We had the docs up. So, tile object. Let's read some of this. An object to direct the target to move on a theoretical board with tiles. So this does not make the tiles. We had to do that too, and I'll show you that in a bit. Works with type. So here are the different types up here. There's lots of different types. And it doesn't work with like pressing down on a tile. Because if you press down on a tile, it would end up it's not quite what you expect. It would sort of not get there. It would stop if it hits a 0. And it just didn't quite seem as natural as what we do in a game board. So if you want that approach, then go to the game module with a game board and use I'll probably mention this down in here, and use EASYstar. EASYstar is a pathfinding library, and that will give you better, people would expect it to work like that. Oh yeah, right there. Okay. So, works with keydown, DPad button, and gameButton and gameStick. For press tile movement, see the ZIM game board and EASYstar pathfinding. Note, the target must initially be placed properly on a tile to start. So in other words, we're using the spacing and everything of that player based on its starting position. So that it is actually the player that is determining where this whole grid is placed. So if you don't want it there, I think you can probably put it there, run it, and hide the player, and then bring the player back when you want to, but probably your player is going to be there to start. Note, the target must, I already said that, and if this is not 0, 0, then set the start column, start rows. Moves are then calculated based on the original target position, the width, the height, the spacings. Okay. Tile object properties are as follows. The time, right, so there's a default time, and we found that it was a little bit different for different things. Just D-pads and GameSticks and keys all kind of worked a little bit differently in terms of the speed that they were operating, so, or expectations, I guess. So you can change those. So, animate, default true, set to false to not animate. The calls and the rows, we talked about those. Not used if there's a moves property. The W and H, that is the width and height of the tile itself, not the whole board. Spacings, start call, start rows, and then the moves. And we talk about the array of arrays. So this is a row. It's pretty easy to figure out row, 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 and each one in there is a column. Okay. Yay! Any properties relating to that? The move grid. Get or set the moves provided by a tile. Note, will not reposition the target if changed. So you would be responsible for that. But that's still pretty cool. That means that dynamically, if you want to be able to go on a tile when you couldn't before, you can. Or if you want to not go on a tile, something's blocking it now, then you can just reset the move grid. But if the player is on the square that you're not allowed to go on, then you're going to have to yourself move the player off there. So we're not testing to see if, because we wouldn't know where to put it. So, oh, all right, you can't go on that square anymore. Where would we put you? What, you know, so we don't know. All right, great. And that's that. Isn't that nice? So that's a big bonus for gaming, to be able to use the motion controller. Motion controller is amazing. All right, we're using it all the time. It saved lots of time for people, and there's all sorts of ways to use the motion controller. Do you want to see the D-pad? So this is what it would look like on mobile. Anytime you're using M to decide what you're doing, you can just say M is equal to true. So this will now act like a mobile device. And when we refresh here, there's the D-pad. And so now I'm holding the D-pad and moving my hand up and down and moving it backwards and forwards. Okay, so you can imagine your thumb just on that. If you're holding your mobile device, you're moving it about. Okay, so cool, huh? However, we don't want to leave it on mobile. And you should never really go into production doing that. I don't think anyway. So we save that up and we say goodbye. Oh, goodbye. Oh, that was our last bubbling, I think. And maybe we'll treat this as an explore more so than a bubbling. Yeah, because I can imagine going into the... I don't want to do bubbling on each of these. We've already done a whole bunch. And I would imagine once we go through all of this stuff, that would be a bit of an explore. All right, so come back for that. Have a look there. So great to have you here in ZIM. There's been all sorts of new things. If we just end this with a little bit of a look back through our previous ZIMs, here were the features that we added. Here we added a chatbot, so that is specific. Chat 8. What is it? The main chat one, Chat GPT, but fed with pre-formatted ZIM questions and answers. So like hundreds, something like 700 ZIM examples are being drawn from in the back end to make the answers better for you. We integrated Rive, so that's pretty amazing. We did the end slicing there, and this is one of my favorites, being able to drag and drop from lists or actually drop targets from anywhere. So that helped making drag and drop type games easier. So that was ZIM 017. ZIM 016, we introduced shaders. That was the big change there. We worked a lot with sound as well. So we integrated the JavaScript speech API into ZIM and made that easier for everybody. Added the range, a bunch of other things as well in there. 015 introduced texture actives, which was an amazing update, etc. And on to 014, physics dynamic physics with based on blobs, and we've gone further than that now. So at some point we introduced a way to put a blob around a picture, so we can outline a picture now automatically, and also instead of and handle concave blobs. So in this case we had a semicircle, which was a blob. We had two triangles, which is just triangles, and we joined those. We don't have to do that anymore. We can have one blob for the whole thing, and we can now do concave physics. So this was earlier, but since then we have concave physics. We introduced a store at this point, and that was exciting, as well as a variety of other things. Okay, so lots of things have been going on. You're welcome to check more about that too in here. So this is the About section, and here's all of our versions in the About section. You kind of read through what's been happening in the versions there. And we have all the bubblings that we did, or many of the bubblings that we did, we've also got here as individual examples. So this batch right here, plus under collections right there, we have all the 018s and the ML5s that we're going to do our Explore videos on right now. And there was another one down under the magical right there, the motion controller. All right. Thanks for hanging out here at ZIM. Come and visit us in the forum. If you're still here, if you've been listening to this the whole time, 20 minutes of your life, then join us. If you haven't already joined us, come on into the forum and Discord. It's free and we're very helpful there. We'd be happy to talk to you. Hey, we could be friends. If you're coding, maybe you're a little nerdy, maybe you don't have a lot of friends. Maybe I won't be your friend, but somebody in the forum will be your friend. Most likely I'll be your friend. Have a sucker for nerds, I think. Seems. Okay, so hopefully we'll see you there. And this has been What's Bubbling at ZIM, our last for 018. It is possible that we come up with something new and just kind of tuck it on the end of 018, but that doesn't usually happen. You'll have to probably wait to 019. I love doing these bubbling videos, and sometimes I miss over the months in between. I miss doing videos. It actually has been a little bit of a while since we've done some videos in ZIM. We always have different things in between as well, like the Code in 5 Minutes, the ZIM Explore, and who knows what else. Sometimes we come up with different features to do in there. But it is the bubblings that are sort of regularly, every 3 or 4 months. Nice to do. All right, so take it easy. Like I said, come to the forum. Ciao.